Welcome to Playwright, an online interview series presented by Queen's Theatre. You are listening to the audio description pre-show notes for the interview. Because the format is fairly simple and the talking is continuous, there will be no audio description during the interview itself. The video begins with a title screen. The Queen's Theatre logo fills up the left side of the screen. The logo resembles the letter Q. The circle of the letter Q is orange, and the rectangular tail is black. The text of the title screen reads, Playwright to Playwright with Rob Urbinati and special guest, Nina Key. Originally recorded August 28, 2020. Technical production, Jay Rogers. The Queen's Theatre at Home text logo is in the lower right-hand corner of the frame. The interview consists of close-ups of Nina and Rob in large squares filling a split screen, with Rob on the left and Nina on the right. At times, when Nina is speaking, a close-up of her fills the screen. Throughout the interview, the phrase Queen's Theatre at Home appears horizontally in the bottom right-hand side of the screen. The word Queen's is in orange, and the word theatre is in black. Rob is sitting in his living room with close-cropped dark hair and a round face, wearing a black t-shirt with the Queen's Theatre logo on it. Nina has long, straight black hair pulled behind her ears. She has olive skin and a long face with full eyes, nose, and lips. She's wearing a short-sleeve, round-neck, aqua blue tunic top, and is sitting in a black mesh desk chair against a white wall.
Hi, my name is Rob Urbinati, and I'm Director of New Play Development at Queen's Theatre. And today is the fourth installment of Playwright to Playwright. These are recorded in advance, and then they will be released on the third Thursday of every month. So if you're interested in watching these, subscribe to the Queen's Theatre YouTube channel, and you'll receive a notification anytime there's a new episode. Today, I have the pleasure of chatting with one of my favorite writers, Nina Key. Hi, Nina. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Everything's really good. Where does this find you? Where is that white wall that you're against?
Yes. I am in Brooklyn. I just moved, actually. I was living in South Slope, and I believe I moved like 10 streets down, but I believe the area that I live in is now called Greenwood Heights. That's where I live.
When you say you just moved, you actually moved during the pandemic?
I did, yeah.
Oh.
It was a very interesting experience. I felt lucky that I found a space that was really close by, so that I didn't have to like move any really long distance. But yeah, we were all wearing masks. Yeah, it was interesting. Unlike any other move I'd ever done before.
I bet. You're not alone in moving. I took a walk today, and on one block, there were 4 moving trucks. I noticed this because they were having trouble getting by each other. But people moving out, people moving in. You happy with your new place?
I do. I love it here. There's so many like big windows, and it's great.
Great. Yeah, the lighting is excellent for this video. So congratulations. We should probably talk about theater just a bit. So I'm familiar with some of your plays, and I was doing some research on the plays that I'm not familiar with. And one thing became instantly clear, which was that there's a lot of recurring themes in your plays: parallel worlds, demons, vampires, outsiders. So I wanted to ask you about that. I'm curious whether this is a conscious intention on your part to explore these worlds, or when you sit down to write, this is what comes to you.
Yeah. There are so many there's so many answers I could give on that, honestly. But I'll tell you a story, Rob. So
Please.
when I was a little kid, superheroes were a really big thing. And we would like ask each other, what kind of superhero power would you want to have? And I remember thinking about it like really intensely and like really deeply, like, what superpower would I have? And the one that I came up with was if I could have the power to transfer a like a memory, or like just if people could feel what other people have gone through or experienced or whatever. I had this like really, like, I was like, the world would be a better place. And I was like, you could change the world in such a great way if you had this power. And I think that some of that has sort of translated into my writing in some ways. I feel like I'm very interested in juxtaposition sometimes, where maybe two different characters will be going through maybe something similar, or they're trying to like reach across the void to each other. And I have always found it very interesting to find those commonalities in different stories, because I feel like in a lot of ways we do go like as the humankind, like we're all kind of going through similar things sometimes. And then I don't know, maybe it still does make the world a better place. Yeah.
Are there any superheroes that have that particular power that you wished upon yourself?
Maybe I should write it. I don't know. I don't think so.
It's interesting because it obviously it has direct parallels with being a playwright and creating characters and being able to empathize with them. So, Nina, one of your plays that I love and that we did a reading of at Queen's Theater as part of our New American Voices reading series is called Ravage. Can you try to describe the plot of that? I know it's a bit complicated, but I'd love for our listeners to get a sense of what the play is about because it's so distinct and unusual.
So Ravage is about a teenage vampire hunter named Yuli. Something traumatic has happened to Yuli in California, and so she moves across the country to New York. And while she's in New York, she's dealing with the aftermath of this traumatic incident where she believes her sister has been taken from her by a vampire king. And she is a senior in high school. So she is navigating that world and also making these connections with a friend at school / love interest, and also a counselor that's been assigned to her. And in the course of the play, she starts to suspect that her neighbor, Sunny, is the vampire king that kidnapped her sister. So by the end of the play, we discover that Yuli does Yuli kidnaps Sunny, like goes into his house and ties him up and everything. And then we discover that Yuli doesn't actually have a sister, that she has created this fantasy of being a vampire hunter to empower herself because she was sexually assaulted by her cousin. And then by the end of the play, Yuli reconnects with her therapist, her counselor at school, and there is a moment where she can kind of start to confront the reality of what happened and begin that healing. So
yeah, it's a really distinct way of using this, vampire killers. When I read the play, I assumed I knew where it was going, and it was sort of darker than I thought. Maybe that's just my bias or my understanding of sort of fantasy genre, but I thought, what an interesting way to use it. And then it went in a completely different direction, having to do with this traumatic event that she experienced. And I remember the same thing happened when we did the reading at Queen's Theater. It was a very well acted, well directed reading. I was really happy with it. And I remember when that moment was revealed, hearing the audience sort of murmur and whisper to each other. It's a beautiful play. What's up with that play now? Are you submitting it elsewhere?
I am.
Have you continued to work on it?
Yes, there is a theater group called the New Cosmopolitans that's actually in California. And it got accepted as part of their reading series for new queer works that unfortunately has been the timeline has been adjusted somewhat due to COVID and the pandemic and everything happening. But yeah, it's been not tabled, but I'm still sending it out, seeing ways that I could develop it more, but it has been paused somewhat.
There's a lot that's been paused lately. I also want to talk about another play of yours that we did a reading of at Queen's Theater, Broken English, which I think, at the risk of speaking for other people, was everyone's favorite play as part of that series. Can you talk about that play specifically? Again, I think there's an autobiographical element to it, like with Ravage, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually wrote that play in 2008. I was a senior in college at NYU, and I actually wrote that as a part of a larger, I don't want to call it a cabaret, but it was sort of a devised theatrical performance where everyone wrote things for it, and then we performed it and everything. I played the mother. I really, it was very emotional and hard, and I commend Hyojin for doing what she did with that role in that play. But yeah, it's very. I think it was probably the first play that I'd ever written that was so autobiographical, and I think since then I've kind of like leaned into that a little bit, where there is very strongly a piece of me in all of my plays, whether it's, I don't know, I also moved from California to New York, like Yuli in Ravage. And yeah.
Can you tell us what Broken English is about?
Yes, it is a play about a not teenage, but he's a little bit older than that, but a young Korean man and his relationship with his mother and their sort of experiences with American culture. Kyle, his name is also Teo, his Korean name, but he's more of like an Americanized person, and his mother is very much traditional, to the point where he describes his mother as clinging to the ghosts of the past. It's a bilingual play, so the mother speaks almost entirely in Korean, and he speaks almost entirely in English. And it's about, again, they're trying to reach across the void and understand each other and love each other. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about what you just mentioned, the play being bilingual. It seems to me there's just too few bilingual plays or multilingual plays. We live in a multilingual society, and tech nowadays seems to allow for subtitles rather easily. Did you set out to write the play as bilingual, or did you just find that served the story better?
I did. My parents speak to me almost exclusively in Korean, and so that part of it was, that's just how I live my life, and that's what's relevant to me. But yeah, I always did think that there was something really beautiful and poetic about the struggle to understand each other linguistically for these two characters, and also that sort of interaction with the audience, that for people who don't speak Korean and they're watching this play, they also have to sort of engage in that, right? The struggle to understand. And I was really attracted to that even from the beginning when I was writing this play.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And again, for my taste, all too rare in theater. Now, we made some modifications. The director, Evan C. Cummings, who I thought did an excellent job with the Queen's Theater reading of it, and modified some of the Korean so that it was in English because it was a reading and we weren't able to do it with full subtitles. But I thought that was still effective. Did that work for you, the having language?
Yeah, I'm always interested in how every director can approach this play. I know that the language is always going to be something that has to be figured out, and it's a challenge. Hopefully a delightful challenge for the directors. But yeah, I've always been really open to however directors interpret that piece of it.
And speaking of that play, I asked you, and you'll be pleased to know it came up again today, if you would consider changing the character of the son to being a woman. There's a whole story behind that isn't interesting about why I originally asked you to do that, but you kindly agreed to it. And I'm just wondering about what that experience was like, changing the gender of the character.
Yeah. So it's mentioned in the play that Kyle / Teo is a Changson, which is the oldest son of the oldest son, bearer of the family line. My brother is actually the Changson in my family, but I just thought about the experience of emigrating and the pressure that is contained in that, to be the Changson, to try to like carry all these hopes, the legacy, there's just an immense amount of pressure. I can imagine, not that I personally know. So it was very interesting to change that character to a female character. I think there are a lot of nuances in Korean culture and what it means. So I almost had to like take that character and kind of like reabsorb it into myself and like kind of bring it out in a different way when I was changing the genders of the characters, which was really interesting. Yeah.
It is still my goal. It has been my goal for a while to have that play produced by Queen's Theater. In fact, I alluded to it that I emailed Taryn today about an idea for a 10-minute play festival, because we have a series of plays that I think are really strong that I would like to do an evening of. And so Broken English came up again today. You mentioned earlier that Ravage was tabled by this company that were they scheduled to do a production of it, Nina?
We were scheduled to do a reading of parts of it, and I don't think that it's like completely tabled. I think it's like next year we will see.
Yeah.
We are planning to do it, and the timeline might have to be something that's worked out. So I think it is still scheduled to be read, but we'll have to see when.
And when you say read, you mean a virtual reading?
I am not sure about that. I think the plan is to be virtual, but again, with the pandemic and we don't know what's going to happen. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on virtual readings? Have you been, I guess, from two perspectives, if you would, from an audience and also as a playwright?
I think that I actually, at the start of the pandemic, when a lot of people were kind of adrift, so to speak, a lot of theater people were like, what do we do now? How do we make theater? I actually produced an online theater festival. I asked 2 other playwrights to write plays that were specifically for an online platform, and we got to choose. So I chose Zoom, another playwright chose Cisco WebEx, and another playwright chose Instagram Live, which was really, really fascinating and interesting. It was really, really cool to see what they did. Yeah, it was incredible. I really, really loved it. With the Instagram Live piece, even you could kind of interact a little bit with the performer and like make comments. You could like respond to whatever the performer was saying. And I think there's a lot of possibility there for virtual theater. And I think, speaking of like themes in my writing, it's like a lot of my plays revolve around kind of like the versatility, the strength of the human spirit to like overcome things. And I think that's also present in a lot of virtual productions. I think like right now, a lot of people are doing a lot of cool things to work with the mediums that we have now. I will say that sometimes it can be difficult to translate. I've noticed there are some things that are just, on stage, and they work better on stage than in the virtual space. I've noticed that especially there's something about looking at a flat screen that kind of makes you expect something almost like TV-like. And works definitely have to be, like rearranged, reorganized, maybe like rewritten a little bit to make it more successful on the virtual platform, virtual stage. So that's interesting. I do think there are a lot of cool possibilities for it, and people are figuring out how.
You seem much more excited and intrigued by those possibilities than some of the writers I've spoken to, and also my friends.
I guess. I mean, I haven't talked to your friends, but
No, you haven't. It's true. I can put you in touch if you like. But
I mean, I would love that.
I guess what I'm referring to, Nina, to be more specific, is that a lot of people have the opinion or have the attitude now that it's like, well, this is something we're going to have to live through, and we have to do these, and it's better than nothing. Whereas you seem genuinely enthused by the possibilities that virtual readings and virtual theater allows.
Yeah, I think that there's something very exciting about the internet. I'm sure a little bit of that excitement is translated in my play, like speaking of Ravage, in the way that Yuli has like this online manifesto, and she's created this online community around her of like fellow vampire hunters. But yeah, I mean, I think there's something very exciting about the internet in that information, art, music. I mean, certainly there's a lot of weird stuff out there, maybe a lot of stuff that isn't like, I don't know, like silly cat memes or anything, although those certainly have a place. But yeah, I think there's something really fantastic about that, and almost like a tool for like equalizing, like leveling the playing. Maybe you can't afford very expensive tickets on Broadway, but you could, catch a recording of it online or however else that works. Yeah.
That's really fascinating. So looking forward, do you think that when theaters reopen, that virtual theater in some of its manifestations and some of the ways it's been applied and continues to evolve will happen simultaneously with live theater? Or do you think that once people can get in the same space together, that virtual theater will disappear?
I know that there is, like, to kind of switch to a topic, but also reference. I know that a lot of people have been working from home lately, and that a lot of people in the disabled community have been talking about, these accommodations have been finally been made, and maybe this is something that should have happened all along. And I feel the same way about art in the virtual space, that maybe there is sort of a space to have art be presented virtually and theater be presented virtually in a way that is more accessible. And I kind of hope that it will. I hope that maybe it'll happen in conjunction. Like, maybe there are some theater makers who will continue to work with the virtual space and also have things happen in person.
It's going to be interesting to see. Nobody really knows, I think, but your enthusiasm and eagerness and, I guess, openness to possibility of that satisfies me, is exciting to me. I wanted to ask you a few more questions specifically about ethnicity and sexuality. We, at Queen's Theater, we, have a mission to do works by underrepresented voices. And there's so many parameters of that are interesting. And there's lots of differences of opinion on that. Specifically, say with Broken English, we set out to find Korean actors as opposed to whatever, sort of whatever the term would be, whatever's appropriate, you tell me, Pan-Asian or just, sort of Japanese actors or Chinese actors. We really wanted Korean actors. What are your thoughts on that? Are you comfortable with the idea that an Asian actor can play any Asian role? Or do you like the idea that Korean actors play Korean characters?
I think for my own works, I do try to find, in general, when I can have a say, actors who are in line with those characters, like orientations or ethnicities. I feel that that's important. I think that there is something really beautiful that, say, for example, a queer Korean actor playing Yuli could bring to that role that maybe wouldn't be present for anyone else. I do also recognize that there aren't enough roles for Asian actors in general, as you said, underrepresented communities. And I think it's important to create, as a playwright, to create more of those. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. I hope that there are generally more plays and more roles in general. And I think there is something really special that an actor who is in line with those kind of elements of a character could bring.
Yeah, it sometimes can be a challenge to cast authentically, I think is the most appropriate word. But it's worth the fight. It really seems like it's worth the struggle.
Yeah.
A beautiful play that was submitted called Severed Hand, about a young Indian guy who was a beggar. And we find out at the end of the play that his mother had chopped off his hand so he could be a more successful beggar. It was really beautiful play, Nina, but in order to cast that play authentically, I guess that what I'm saying is that we were not able to cast that play authentically. So we were not able to do that play, which then becomes a complicated issue. Should we cast an actor without a upper that isn't an upper limb amputee? At any rate, it's complicated and interesting, and your plays raise those questions for me. What are you working on now? Are you working on something new and exciting?
Yes, actually, I've been working on some audio plays. I was very fortunate to be part of the Parsnip Ship's inaugural Radio Roots Writers Group, where I developed a play called Sea Longing that is having actually a reading this Sunday that you are invited to, Rob, if you would like to come.
Excellent.
It's one of those like private readings. I just didn't want to open it up to the general public because I didn't feel like it was ready yet, but you're definitely invited, Rob. But it's a play, if I could say it in probably a few words, it would be a play about sea lions. It's called Sea Longing, sea lions and immigration, and the kind of world as it is today. Yeah.
A play about sea lions. I don't think I've ever seen one.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
I'll definitely send you the
Did you
invite.
make a choice for it to be a private reading as opposed to a public one?
I did. Yes, they asked me what I wanted, and I was like, I just don't think it's ready yet. I need some more time. I just actually had the rehearsal before this interview, so I think it's going to be good. I had to stop myself from crying several times, so I feel like that's a marker of success for my plays.
That's great. Would you please send me a copy of the play too?
Of course.
When you think it's ready, of course.
Mhm.
We have no idea when we're opening, what we're doing, what we're looking for when we open, but I'm still reading plays, so please send that along to me. Nina, it's really been a pleasure to get to know you a bit over these past couple of years. This presence that I think anyone who watches this interview will see how upbeat and cheerful and what a positive spirit you have comes through in your work and also in working with you. Our experiences. I remember looking at your face during the reading of Broken English, because there was that adjustment with the language, and I remember you just leaning forward and beaming and being really satisfied with what was happening up there. So you're just the type of person that I personally like to collaborate and collaborate with, and also you're young and internet savvy, and in the world we're in now, in the moment we're in now, that's a beautiful thing. It's an important thing, and so I'm interested in what you continue to do over these next months, years. Who knows how long it's going to be. Please keep in touch. Please send me your work. Please let me know anytime there's going to be a public reading of your work and also a private reading. And it's been fantastic talking with you today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you the best with everything.
Thank you. And I want to say also that I have loved working with you.
Well, thank you.
Yes, equally.
So sweet.
So, and I have loved all the experiences that I've had with the Queen's Theater. So I'm very grateful and very appreciative.
Thank you. And I can promise you here and now that your experiences with Queen's Theater have not ended. They shall continue. And I will be in touch about that as soon as I have more information.
Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nina. Have a good afternoon. Have a good weekend. And till next time, till next we meet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nina, for joining us for this episode of Playwright to Playwright. And thank all of you at home for watching. We'll have new episodes for you the third Thursday of every month. On October 15th, one of my favorite playwrights who did a lot of his early work at Queen's Theater and has gone on to an amazing career, Qui Gwen, will be our guest. You can find us on social media and on our website, www.queenstheater.org, where you can stay up to date on all of our Queen's Theater at Home programming. Until next time, I'm Rob Urbinati. Stay happy, stay safe. See you then.